When you are talking to someone in person, there's a lot of body language that you show to express or give emphasis to certain things that you're saying to one another. But when you are in a long distance relationship and only able to talk over the phone or over a video call, there's not a lot of body language. I mean, there is a little bit, but it's definitely not the same. So everything that you feel and the things that are more important to you, you have to verbalize that. You have to express that. And that is something that both my boyfriend and I were challenged in, because there was a lot of misunderstanding sometimes. And it wasn't until we realized, oh, I just have to say this. Like, I have to let them know this, that things were able to work out. And it seems so simple, but it really isn't. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Adri, Adventurous Catholic. If you are following me on Instagram, then you have probably seen me post a lot recently about my boyfriend and I, because he is finally back. So he was studying out of state for about 6.5 months, and he is finally back. So he came back last week. We weren't able to see each other during those 6.5 months. All communication was via phone call or Zoom, or sometimes WhatsApp, because Zoom would give us problems, technological difficulties, but it was worth it. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about how I got through this long distance relationship. Let us get started. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. The main thing that I did throughout this time was prayer. I prayed and prayed and prayed a lot. That was ultimately like my daily water. If I didn't pray for our relationship, I knew it would fall apart, it would fail, because I wouldn't be doing my part to bring God into the center of our relationship, which I find to be the most important thing. And my boyfriend and I are on the same page with that. So that is definitely a blessing. That is such a huge thing that unfortunately a lot of relationships don't have, because they can perhaps be from different religious backgrounds. They have different spiritual mindsets, we can say, but thank God, because both my boyfriend and I are practicing Catholics, we both knew from the very start that we have to center God in our relationship. So that is something that I did when my boyfriend and I were not able to talk. I continuously asked God, is this what you want for me? Is this the relationship that you have in mind for me? Is this what is going to sanctify me and bring me to heaven? Because ultimately that is what our vocation is for, whether you're called to religious life, priesthood, married life. Our vocations are supposed to be the bridge to heaven. And that is the way that my boyfriend and I see our relationship. If this is God's will, it's going to happen. It's going to allow us to become holier, better versions of ourselves. The next thing that I did very often throughout this time that really helped me was I journaled often. So I wrote down my feelings, my emotions, my thoughts, my worries and concerns, the stressful parts of my own day-to-day life, and even my joys, moments of peace, moments of gratitude, the things that I was going through. I wrote them down to organize my thoughts, because this was really helpful, not only for the relationship, because I was able to get my thoughts together for when my boyfriend and I do talk over the phone or over video call. I was able to express myself better to him, since I had written down what I'm feeling. I got to know myself better. I was able to reflect a lot, do a lot of self-reflection. That is something I encourage you to do, whether or not you're in a long distance relationship. It is really important that we reflect on ourselves and get to know ourselves more. So that is something that this long distance courtship allowed me to do. It allowed me to get to know my feelings a little bit better and verbalize them, bring them out of just my thoughts and just my inner self, so that I can express that. So I was able to express myself to God in prayer better because I knew what I was praying to Him for. The next thing that I found to be very beautiful was I offered up my pain. I offered up my difficulties, my sufferings. I would offer it up for my future vocation. If God is calling my boyfriend and I to marriage, then we are going to marry one day and we're going to have a family. And I offered up my little moments of difficulty for that, for our future family. And I found that to be very motivating because this happens to everybody. There's times where we just don't want to do something, or we're just not in the mood, or we're feeling a little bit lazier than usual, and it's normal. But if we're able to discover our why, our purpose, our end goal, that which is sanctity, which should be to get to heaven, well, if we're able to discover that, then we can offer up our daily struggles for that. And that brings us that motivation that we need sometimes because we're humans. It brought me a lot more motivation to know that I was working for my own sanctification. Definitely a spiritual approach to it and something that I recommend as well. So that is definitely something that I would recommend you do, if you're wondering how this long distance relationship that you may be in can be better. It'll pay off. And finally, the other thing that I could say that I did was I spent a lot of time with my family, which helped me realize that life passes by in the blink of an eye. That sounds so cliche, but it really does. I mean, I can't stress it enough, but I realized spending time with my parents, spending time with my brothers, that these are probably the only moments I'm going to really get to spend a lot of time with them, because if God really does call me to marriage, then I'm going to leave my family behind and I'm going to start a new family. And my time with them is going to be very limited. So I need to take advantage of these minor opportunities to spend with them. All right, so now the things that we did together, my boyfriend and I, to get through this long distance and to enjoy it. I think that before he left, my mentality was, I can't wait for him to be back. Like, I just want these 6.5 months to be over. And definitely I was counting down the whole time because I just finally wanted to see him again. But I realized that him being out there and me being over here still and us not seeing each other was part of our own relationship. And if we didn't try to enjoy it, if we only looked forward to the future, then we would miss it all and probably not mature much from it. So we had to live in the present moment. And that is what allowed us to realize during this time that our love goes way beyond physical, way beyond what we can touch, what we can feel, what we can see. But we know that we are here for each other, even if we are almost 1,000 miles apart from each other. I had to get into the mindset that this isn't about the end when he comes back, but it's about the process. There's a lot that I was able to grow in during this time. So one of the things that we did together in this period of long distance courting was we prayed together. We both had to make that conscious decision to center our relationship on God. And so we did that primarily through praying the Holy Rosary together and also meditating together. So we would read together and we would sit there in silence and just contemplate God and talk about it afterwards. So we definitely encouraged each other spiritually, and we helped each other to grow spiritually and to always remember that it is God, not us, who is making this all happen and work out. So that was beautiful. That was definitely a highlight and something that I would recommend every couple do, obviously. But like I said earlier, I am just so grateful that my boyfriend and I are both Catholic, practicing Catholic, and we both value this, because it doesn't make it necessarily easier, but it brings us to the same page. And being on the same page is very necessary because we see the world in a very similar way. Obviously, we have our differences, but we can approach the world in a similar way. And that is typically what makes a relationship work out. The next thing was that we had to be very open to each other. By this, I mean communication. And you've probably heard this several times, that communication is one of the most important things in a relationship. But that's something that I heard before, and I was like, oh yeah, I've heard that before. But it wasn't until I lived it out during this long distance that I realized it a lot more, and it really impacted me how much we had to communicate to each other, because it's different than in person. When you are talking to someone in person, there's a lot of body language that you show to express or give emphasis to certain things that you're saying to one another. But when you are in a long distance relationship and only able to talk over the phone or over a video call, there's not a lot of body language. I mean, there is a little bit, but it's definitely not the same. So everything that you feel and the things that are more important to you, you have to verbalize that. You have to express that. And that is something that both my boyfriend and I were challenged in, because there was a lot of misunderstanding sometimes. And it wasn't until we realized, oh, I just have to say this. Like, I have to let them know this, that things were able to work out. And it seems so simple, but it really isn't. So if you're in a long distance relationship, I get it. I know what it's like. And so this leads me to the next point, which is also the last point, is that we had to become creative with the way that we express our love towards each other. Distance is not a barrier when there is true love. If you see distance to be a barrier in your relationship, it's not the distance, but there are probably other things. There are probably other red flags that you're noticing, or other things about yourself. There's probably not true, genuine love existing there. There are other factors, there are other reasons, and eventually it's not going to work out regardless of the distance. Because if true love is not really there, whether you live 2 minutes away, across the street from each other, or across the country, it's not going to work out regardless. On the other hand, if true love is really there, if both are centering their courtship on God and are discerning marriage and see each other as the one, then it doesn't matter how many miles are between the two, it's going to work out. So that is definitely something that I learned during this time. It was that we were both very invested in each other, and we both knew that we wanted to make this work because we really love each other. So there was no way that that would break apart unless God wanted it to break apart. But still, we had to become creative with the way that we express that to each other. I don't know if you've heard of or learned about the 5 love languages before. There is physical touch, quality time, acts of service. What are the other 2? Oh, physical gifts and words of affirmation. So those are 5 love languages. I'll link that down below if you wanted to read about them. I recommend reading about them. I read about them right when our courtship began. Words of affirmation is one of my top love languages. It is his as well. So this kind of worked out for both of our benefits because the distance definitely limited our forms of expressing our love to each other, but it narrowed it down to one of our strongest qualities, which was words of affirmation, affirming each other, complimenting each other, reminding each other that we are here for each other, what we love about each other, supporting each other, and etc., etc. And that was just very, very necessary for both of us to feel each other's love, because all of the other forms of love were not as easily available, if that makes sense. With that said, I just want to encourage you, if you are in a long distance relationship or if you are about to start a long distance relationship, just know that it is possible, it is rewarding, it will pay off, of course, if it is God's will. Pray about it, pray about it, pray about it, and that's it. Do your part and leave the rest to God. I hope you enjoyed my video. I hope you learned something new from it. If you did like it, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. God bless you all. Stay faithful, my friends, and I will see you all next week.